Leonard Asper is a Canadian businessman and lawyer who is a Maccabiah athlete competing in the age 50 and up grouping. Leonard, how many things can you name that would leave your business obligations for 2 weeks for?
Well, I hate to say this, nothing else, not even my family, unfortunately. This is so special that so many people from all over the world, whether it's Argentina or Canada or US or Australia, India, they make every exception they possibly can. The world stops when there's a chance to compete in the Maccabiah Games because it's such a special time to meet people like you, Zionists, people who love Israel, people who love sport, and people who love just being together with their friends and reconnecting every 4 or 5 years. It's a very meaningful event that can't be replicated, and so it's the only holiday we'll ever take.
Is it more difficult to play when you're over 50?
Yes, but I want to say one thing. It's something about the air in Israel. It might be divine, but none of us, we're all commenting that none of us, our injuries that we feel in the Toronto or New York or Los Angeles or Sydney, Cordoba, we don't have them here. My knees are feeling much better in Israel. I don't know why. Maybe that's why people make Aliyah. It's not about the land. It's about the body. But no, it's something that we really cherish, and so I think it's not about necessarily winning. Most of us don't come here. Some people come expecting to win, but some people know that they're just here to experience Israel and get in shape and have a purpose while they're also in a way making temporary Aliyah.
And obviously, you're a tournament quality tennis player. Would you say that the Maccabiah is something else that a place for playing great tennis matches?
Yes, the quality is very good. There are former professional players here. There are people who are ranked on the World Over 50 Tour. And so I got a bit of a cold shower here because I didn't realize just quite how good the competition was. It's, as I can say, it's about the friendly competition. And as I say, they're always going to be better. Not everyone wins the gold, but most of us aren't here necessarily to win the gold. We're here because of the spirit of how athletics can mix with culture and education and friendship.
What do the Maccabiah Games mean to you?
It's about Israel. It really is about Israel. They have Maccabiah events all over the world, but it's about the fact that Israel exists.
Do sports benefit your personal life and your professional life?
Oh yeah, I look at sports. I love sports, and I firmly believe that every day somebody should do something, whether it's 10 push-ups or jump rope 100 times or 5 sit-ups. It doesn't matter what it is. If first of all you sleep better, you're healthier, you have a different outlook on life, just by being active. The physical part of it, the mental part of it, is even more important because you develop a mental fortitude when you play a sport. But to win a game at the Maccabiah Games gives you a thrill, like you won. You're in the games. You won, and like in hockey we won a medal. Like I have a medal. I'm 50 years old. I won a medal at something. That just keeps you young, and it's what's great about it.
Now, the Asper Foundation just announced a major gift of $2.5 million to the Asper Maccabi House. Why are Jewish sports so important?
Wow, I mean that's such a long and important question. And I until we started getting involved with Kfar Maccabiah and the Maccabi movement generally, I hadn't sort of gone back and thought about that question about Jewish sports. But Jewish sports is not an isolated term. Jewish sports is weaved into history so deeply in the last 120, 130 years. If you go back to Alfred Dreyfus and the breaking of a sword that led to the first fencing club in Turkey, that started the Maccabi movement generally, and then you go to the things like the Olympics in Munich there's a great story in the museum about the swimmer who had won a medal, but they didn't think she was going to win, so they didn't have Hatikva. So that I didn't know the story. I got choked. I mean, she's singing it in this microphone, and Tal Brody and the basketball team, and just these sort of landmark events, some very sad, but some very beautiful, some incredible things. And celebration of Jewish, the sort of a story of Jews in sport. People would think, oh, the Jewish Sports Museum, that must be like a 5-minute thing. The whole thing about how many Jews are really good in sports, but there are lots, and people don't necessarily know it, and it's a great story. And what Maccabi does in particular really well is they bring people to Israel who are not necessarily very imbued with Israeli history. They're not very connected to Israel at all. They're not educated about Israel, and they're kind of out there playing sports, and they just happen to be Jewish. But then they come here and they get this connection, and it never goes away. And it was through sport. But when you bring a 17-year-old to Israel to play sports, it's just, and magic happens, and you didn't have to shove it down anyone's throat. It just got there, and that's just a great thing. And that's what Maccabi does really well. And it also helps people in the communities, in the however many clubs, the 500 clubs around the world. It gives people, and especially in cities and places where there isn't a big Jewish population, and it's spread out, you get people being able to connect with other Jews in those cities too. So it's both in the diaspora in Israel. It's a very powerful organization, a very, very effective organization, very impactful, and it's changed a lot of lives. And this museum really changed my life when I went through it. So it's going to change a lot of lives too.
You spent years working on a fighting channel. Can you describe the channel for us? What is its goal?
Well, it was the start of a business, a new business I created, which is really targeting passionate communities. So the first one, I thought about what's missing, where's there no centrality. It's kind of like the Israel of fighting in a way. There's no epicenter for combat sports, and combat sports isn't about two people hitting each other. It's really about an ethos and a set of values. That two people enter a ring or a field of play or a court, whatever you want to call it, and share, because they've trained, they've done all these things. It's one of those individual sports where you have to really be strong mentally and physically, of course, but it's got rules, and there are rules of engagement, and I think the fighters, the rules of honor and respect, and the fact that people have trained so hard to get there. That was the first passionate community I discovered of like-minded people who practiced combat sports around the world. And then since then, we've actually we've discovered so many other communities: the hunting and fishing community, the several different sub-communities within the music space. So we're building out a lot of content for those communities. And the thing about media now is it's global. It really is global. So with all the digital, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or Amazon or whatever it is, Apple, there may be 7 people in one city who like one thing, but there's 7 million people around the world who like that thing, and this connects them. What my company now trying to do is connect all those people who love certain kinds of content and want to engage with it and find their friends around the world. It's kind of like there's the Fight Network, and then there's our diaspora, and we connect them all. And so it's just one of many channels we have now.
Would you say it's kind of the same role as the Maccabiah does with the Jewish athletes?
Yes, it's true. There are all these little satellite groupings of people who share these same values and love Israel and want to play sports and respect each other for the different sports they play, but they share the same common bond, and Maccabi really does bring them together.
And now, from the lens of a businessman, while looking at Israel, what are you proud of, and where do you think there's room for improvement?
The coming together of capital, ideas, people, and the marketing skills I'm talking about, which it takes ideas and teams and, as I say, money, and then marketing and sales and execution, and that is all coming together within Israel itself. And so now these businesses that are starting up now in Israel are complete businesses, and that's keeping more money here. Because the whole, it's like you have oil and then you have refining, but now you have the oil and the refining all in one place, and the value added is in Israel, and it's being poured back into the Israeli economy, and it's just compounding upon each other.
And where there is room for improvement?
I think, look, the electoral system here makes it challenging because governments change quickly and unpredictably. So, and no one's going to change that really, but it is a challenge because you don't have this every 4 or 5 years. Something you have whoever it is, whether they like them or not like them. But so that's a little bit challenging, and I think there's still a little bit of obviously Israel has to market. We have to find a way to tell parts of the world at least that Israel is what Israel really is and what it isn't, because obviously there are incredible misperceptions about Israel in the world that is keeping capital out of Israel. So I think marketing the country is the biggest thing, and continue to develop it. Transportation systems. There's a lot of traffic here, and it just keeps, and not no one's fault. It's just growing so fast. It's hard to it takes a long time to build a highway and rail lines and stuff. Doesn't take that long for 200,000 people to show up. So the people are coming faster than the country can create infrastructure. So I think keeping that infrastructure, keeping a real strong focus on building the infrastructure necessary for quality of life here will be just as important as getting capital here. And they're kind of intertwined.
Thank you so much.